Thank you for coming in a miserable day in many ways, but we appreciate your coming. We hope we can have a good exchange based on I think, a rich discussion. Well, first, I guess I better introduce myself. My name's Geoff Hayes, and I teach in the history department here. And for those that know me, the word moderator is probably a misnomer, but I'll do my best to be moderate and to do all of the things that I'm supposed to do. One of the things that I do is to teach, as well as do some of my colleagues, is to teach the impact of war in the 20th century. And so, for a variety of reasons, the discussions around Remembrance Day have a particular resonance with me. I always must admit feeling slightly ambivalent. I grew up in the 1960s and 70s when very few people celebrated Remembrance Day. It was a day off at school, and which to me was meaning it was terrific. And so, you know, for those of my students who now remember or understand Remembrance Day in a very different context, I suppose that's an element that we need to understand, and I'm glad we've got people that can help us do that. Through the course of the last week, I've been understanding Remembrance Day in my own way and looking at a number of different reports and discussions and commentaries about remembrance. A great number of questions always seem to arise that I thought would be appropriate for us now that the day's activities have taken place. It seems to me it's a nice moment for us to contemplate and discuss, perhaps even debate some of the questions that have come up over not only the last few weeks, but as we'll find over the last several decades. Questions about white and red poppies, questions about what Remembrance Day means. I was struck in the local record on which for some of you don't know, that's the newspaper in KW, which people over 50 will know, but people below 50 might have a problem with. And there was a discussion about what Remembrance Day meant to various record employees, and it meant an extraordinary range of things. To remember a 19-year-old uncle who died in Vietnam, to remembering just a bizarre, almost a bizarre list of ideas about taking or understanding present-day civil wars, to cemeteries that people had visited while in Europe or other parts of the world, to remember those who worked behind the scenes. And I wasn't quite sure what that meant. Other questions that have been raised over the course of the last week are, how should we understand the soldiers? Are they heroes or victims? That was a note raised by Doug Saunders in the Globe and Mail. But the idea of who should be included, who should be excluded, what language or what imagery we should use over the course of this day and of this week are in many ways, of course, not new questions, but we seem to come back to these discussions as if they are new every year. So I'm glad that that Aaron Campbell, who has helped us organize this event, has invited a group of people from the university community to talk about these kinds of questions and to bring their own insights into it. So let me just quickly get out of the way, but not before I provide some introductions and then sit down and enjoy the discussion. Dave Gall is a Waterloo graduate who did his BA and MA with us and went off to the University of Toronto, some far distant place, and was in fact, and is still continuing to work on ideas of remembrance as a historical idea, as a historical project. And we're lucky to have him back in, not so much in the history department, we wish he was there, but as part of the staff of the library, working in, you told me now twice, serials and standing orders, there. So we're very pleased that Dave is here, that Dave is on with us, and that we can enjoy his insights as a historian. It should also be said that Dave had a chance to visit the battlefields back about 7 years ago as a student at that time. Dave is going to set the stages to talk about the changing ideas, perhaps, of remembrance based on his own research that he did at the U of T. And then I'd like to invite Dr. Nathan Funk to the front of the room. And Nathan, as you know, is involved in as a professor in peace and conflict studies at Conrad Grebel University College. He is a graduate of the American University School of International Service in Washington, D.C., where he has a Ph.D. in international relations. He has lived in the Middle East and South Asia, working on research and training projects for the United States Institute of Peace. And he presently serves as a member of the board of directors for Project Plowshares, as well as Peace Build, the Canadian Peacebuilding Network. He has authored or co-authored a number of writings on international conflict resolution, with a specific focus on Islamic-Western relations, identity conflict, and the role of cultural and religious factors in peace-building capacity development. Then I'll ask James Skidmore to come forward, and it's hard to know how to deal with the first line. You're the fifth and perfect son of your parents. Well, we'll have to talk to your parents about that, Jim. Product of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, the Paris of the prairies. Skid, as he is, there again is an alliterative reference that has no meaning to me at all. The Paris of the prairies. Wonder what Regina is, that I'm just trying to think of what's the equivalent. Skid studied French and German at the University of Saskatchewan before abandoning the dusty I'm going to just stick to this dusty plains of the West for the sticky humidity of the East to complete a Ph.D. in German literature at a place called Princeton. Prior to coming to UW in 2000, he worked at the University of Brunswick, where he was an assistant professor and also the dean of the university's resident system, and also at Wilfrid Laurier, where he founded and was the founding chair of the Department of Languages and Literatures. Then he got wise, came up the street. He is currently an associate professor of German and an arts teaching fellow, a director of liberal, and as well as the director of liberal studies, and a former chair of the Department of Germanic and Slavic. Your interests, Skid, focus on, I guess you're telling me this, but I'm telling you back. Don't quite know why I chose that usage. You focus on German literature and film of the 20th century, specifically the way in which these media represent political ideology and social change. And you also live in a house that's named after your street, Villa Herbert. So you have successfully migrated from the prairies and suffered through your transformation there. Finally, and certainly by no least, Kirk Goodlet is a doctoral candidate here, a graduate of the University of Ottawa, and with his MA and soon to be PhD. Soon is always a wonderful way of referring to these things. And is also a researcher at Laurier, at the Laurier Center for Military, Strategic, and Disarmament Studies, where I know he's done terrific things with our mentor, I think we can say now, Terry Kopp. His work, to say that Kirk is prolific is an understatement. His work has spanned a remarkable series of topics and centuries, and most recently he has worked on a brilliant discussion of German prisoners of war in Canada during the Second World War. He has written and published on Holocaust studies, and his PhD thesis, which will again be done soon, and by soon we mean tomorrow, it will investigate the study of the occupation, and we use this word in a curious way, the liberation and the post-war reconstruction of a province, Zeeland, in the Netherlands. And so I've introduced the panel to you. I've raised a few questions, and I hope you'll raise a few more in the few minutes that we have together.